Hello, friends. I'm your host, Dave Layton, and welcome to the podcast, Walking with Our Master, an outreach of the Prattville Church of Christ designed to inform, encourage, and teach as we daily walk with our Master. Well, today I'm joined by Travis Ray. Now, we know Travis as one of our outstanding young men here in the congregation. Travis was one of Prattville's police officers, but he's made a career change, and I'm going to let him talk about that. Hello, Travis.
Hey, it is nice to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you.
No, yeah. So as far as my recent career change, as you know, I was previously part of the Prattville Police Department. I worked there for 8 years and some change. Most of that time was as a investigator in just general crimes, which means, I handled everything, with some exceptions.
Okay, so it was primarily investigations. Okay.
Most of my time was investigations.
Okay.
I was on the street for a little while before that, but then once I found investigations, I kind of found my niche and stuck there.
So I'm curious, real quick. I assume every law enforcement officer, as they start out in that career field, work as what, a traffic?
Just a patrol officer.
Patrol officer.
Yep. Okay. You're the first guy to respond to calls. At the bottom, before you can actually specialize and go into any specialized unit, traffic guys who are working the accidents, you still have to have a minimum of, at least for the city of Prattville, it's 2 years.
Okay, so then during that 2-year time, you're picking up experience, education, you're maybe thinking about these specialty areas that are coming open? Okay.
That's right. A lot of people find if they do end up deciding to move into a specialized field, they end up kind of developing a good feeling for that during that period of time. So some people may decide that they like the kind of work that narcotics does, so they may try to focus on trying to chase that particular career goal. And for me, I knew I wanted to get into investigations, so when the opportunity presented itself, I went there and I stuck around for 5 years or so. Okay.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of career fields people want to get into, they say, well, how do I start in that, or what can I expect when I start?
Right.
Yeah, you gotta pay your dues.
Right. That's part of it, for sure. And then this year I have actually moved over to state level law enforcement. I'm working as a special agent for the Securities Commission, and so I'm handling, strictly speaking, white collar crime.
Okay.
Now. Cleaner work. It's good. A lot broader in a lot of cases as far as they're larger scale investigations, but it's been a good career move, I would say.
And so within that, there's still even more specialization. For example, there might be finance, there might be cyber, I don't know.
While we don't have any particular changes in titles, we do tend to have people who specialize in certain fields. You may have somebody who is more of an expert in how securities themselves work. You may have some people who are more specialized in or more better resources as far as cryptocurrency. We have somebody who deals with things that drift towards commodities like gold sales and stuff, or investments in gold and things of that nature.
Okay.
You have some people who can do the forensic accounting thing a lot better than others. So we do still have specializations, but most of it is, again, focused in that kind of chunk of what our jurisdiction covers.
Okay, that's fascinating. Wow. Because you do hear these terms, and you don't think, there's a lot that goes within this that we don't necessarily know about or understand about.
Right, and I'm still learning.
I found that out in my career as a curriculum developer within Alabama's college system. I would work with a different discipline or career field, and I was always amazed at how much more there was to that than I never even imagined there would be. For example, we had cosmetology faculty, and we were working with them, going through their curriculum, and they actually have to have courses in AC and DC electricity because they deal with electrical things while they're working, and I would have never thought about that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's fascinating.
Yeah. No.
All right. Well, great. So you're working now at a state level investigative career.
That's right.
All right.
Yeah.
Super. Well, I thought you would be a great person to talk about the point that we want to talk about. During this time of year, we're doing more shopping, we're doing more traveling and visiting people and having people over to our homes, and all kinds of things are going on. And so I think it's important we talk about personal and property security during this time because of the upcoming shopping season and holiday season. It seems like we're more vulnerable during this time. There's so much going on, we're so busy, maybe we're getting a little complacent or careless or forgetful or whatever the case may be. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that and some things that we can do to help keep ourselves and our property and our loved ones more secure during this time. So let's talk about that.
So, like you said, especially as we near the holiday season, we have an uptick in certain types of crime. It's a combination of you'll have people traveling. Many of our shopping centers are going to have people from all over, several cities over. People will travel, and so we'll have an influx of new people. You'll have people who are away from home. There's all of these different opportunities that present themselves to somebody looking to take advantage of that. And we have, on one hand, we have people who are trying to take advantage of that, and on the other hand, we have people who are going to make themselves more vulnerable. Not intentionally, but
yeah.
The holidays are a busy season. People get stressed out. People get distracted. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes things do get forgotten. And there's some stuff that we can do to definitely make the process a lot safer for us and, by extension, our property.
Okay.
So,
something that we like to do, we like to travel.
Right.
And so I think it's a good idea to let my family and friends know what my travel plans are. But
yep. And I think we spoke about this last time. There is still a staggering amount of the population that wants to put their travel plans on social media, especially things advertising, hey,
in detail.
I am away from my home and will be for some time. Things to make their homes easy targets if somebody was paying attention to that. So I would always recommend let people immediately around you that you trust know, hey, I'm going to be out of town.
Well, my neighbors are going to help keep my property secure.
That's right.
They're going to be watching. I'm going to be watching their property. But beyond that, we got to be really thinking about it.
We've got to be careful. And a lot of security does come from community. So if you don't know your neighbors, maybe now's the time to take them over a thing of cookies or something like that.
Yeah.
Make friends with your neighbors, because just like they may watch your property while you're gone, if they trust you enough to say, hey, I'm going to be out of town, there's a sort of codependency that can develop in a healthy way.
Yeah, my neighbor, both sides of the house, we trust very well, and one of my neighbors does have a key to our house. Again, we trust them very well.
Right.
And we watch their property as well.
Right. But just for anybody who is compelled to take pictures of their Christmas, just maybe at the very least wait until you're home before you post certain things.
Okay.
Or at least not advertise, hey, the entire family is gone.
Yeah.
And we left a bunch of stuff at our house. In addition to that, like I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of these shopping centers. Even though people do a lot of shopping online, these shopping centers are still going to be full of new people. And 99.9% of those people don't wish you any sort of harm, but you're occasionally going to have somebody sneak in there who's going to look to take advantage of somebody.
Yeah.
So just as you go into these shopping centers, just try to pay attention.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to treat everybody with suspicion or anything like that, but just kind of make sure you don't get tunnel vision on whatever it is that you're going for.
In the military, we had a term for it, and I think the police officers have a term for it. We call it situational awareness.
That's right.
Knowing what's going on around you
is very important. You may have, especially ladies who carry purses, often have all sorts of valuable items in their purses. Wallets, phones.
Right. Oh, and not just the money, but their ID cards, driver's license. So we're going to talk about personal security,
That's right.
ID security, but that's something to think about.
That's right. And there have been several thefts that I've worked where somebody's had something either stolen out of their purse or had their purse stolen entirely. And most of them are preventable. Very rarely do you get somebody who is going to have their purse snatched off of their person. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I've seen it happen as well. But it's more likely that a bad guy is going to see your property just in your cart, and if you're not paying attention, and some people don't pay attention. I've had instances where somebody's wandered off into an aisle and left their cart with all their belongings, and somebody's walked up and
it might be something very innocent, like mom's taking care of a child that's screaming, and so she's distracted, or the husband's distracted, and somebody comes along and
that's right,
snatches the item.
And a lot of it is preventable, just because if you just kind of keep half an idea of like, hey, I don't need to wander off for a couple of minutes away from my property, a lot of it can be prevented. But like you said, situational awareness.
Okay. Good. Okay. And so, we chatted a little bit before we got to talking, and there's some things like securing my items that I've purchased. Now, if I have not purchased them, they're in the shopping cart, that's not as big a threat. But once I've paid for it, I've got to protect it.
Yeah. So, especially when it comes to vehicles, I always tell people, make sure you lock your car doors.
And park in a well-lit area. If
park
it's
in a well-lit area. Park near the... Now, parking near the store is not always viable.
Right.
And not everywhere has great cameras in their parking lots, unfortunately. Right. But try to at least be aware of where you park. And when you do park, make sure you're not leaving... And again, this almost goes without saying, but I'm going to throw it out there just in case somebody hadn't considered it. Make sure you don't leave anything valuable in these seats or plainly visible.
Right, in plain view, that's right.
Trunks are great, but you also need to make sure, like I said, your vehicle is locked, because otherwise somebody can pop the trunk. Mm-hmm. And if somebody really wants in your vehicle, they can break a window.
Yeah.
That's an unfortunate reality. Yeah. But a lot of this does come down to at least making it less appealing, because you can actually cut out a lot by just doing some very basic stuff, not leaving big gift bags super plainly visible. A lot of people have like extra jackets or blankets or things like that in the car that you can just throw over something. Mm-hmm. Realistically, a bad guy might think, hey, there's something under there, but at the very least, you're breaking the line of sight in between what you purchased and whoever might be poking around.
The idea, as we know, most thieves are looking for a target of opportunity and least resistance.
That's right.
So if you set some hurdles up there, you're helping yourself out. I mentioned to you that on our car, we have a cover that we can actually pull out, and it covers the back area. We don't have a trunk, we have a hatchback, so it covers that area.
Right.
So it's, again, not putting it in plain sight.
That's right. I would always encourage just that little bit of extra. Mm-hmm. You don't have to do something crazy. You don't have to run home in between every stop or anything like that. But there's just a couple of extra precautions you can take. And just like I was mentioning stuff you've purchased, Christmas gifts and stuff like that, just purses and backpacks. A lot of people will leave those plainly visible. And when I do see, or did rather in my past job, when I would see windows get broken, it would typically be because there was a bag or there was something that looked like it contained a lot of valuable stuff in there. Okay. 95% of our vehicle break-ins were just unsecured vehicles, but when we did see windows broken, they saw something they wanted.
Yeah. High theft items. What are you thinking about high theft items? I would think at the top of the list would be something like electronics.
Electronics are a big one. Some of it does depend on if we're talking in your car, or in your car or on your person when you're out and about, or if you're at your home. They're popular any time of year, but a lot of people leave guns in unsecured vehicles. So I would always...
I'd be scared to death to do that. If you're going to carry one, secure it.
Yeah, but we have a big problem with people leaving guns in unsecured vehicles. or leaving guns in unsecured vehicles and not even having a serial number for the gun, because a lot of gun owners do not keep track of their serial numbers like they should. So if you have any firearms that you're afraid could get stolen, if you want the police to have any chance of getting it back, write that serial number down, take a picture on your phone, put it on iCloud, something like that. But keep track of that. Same thing with electronics. Most electronics have a serial number of some variety that you can record, and sometimes that serial number may be the way we get something back.
Okay.
So serial numbers are also very important. Especially after Christmas, a lot of people are prone to have boxes outside of their house.
That's a good point.
I've always heard that it is a good idea to maybe break down some of those boxes.
That's right. Yeah.
Toss them somewhere else if you have that option.
Break them down, have the plain cardboard side facing up rather than the item itself. Hey, look, I just got a brand new giant screen TV or computer or
giant
whatever.
TV, a bunch of other expensive electronics.
Yeah.
And, I don't have any sort of statistics to back that up, but it still does not feel like a good idea.
Well, we hear a lot about it, though.
So
that's right.
And depending on where you are, your neighborhood may be different. So in one neighborhood, you might be able to leave a big TV box outside, and that would be fine. But you may live in an entirely different neighborhood or city or whatever, and that may be a big green flag for somebody who wants to break into
At
your
least
house.
don't put it out until trash day.
At the very least, yeah. There's some basic stuff you can do. Sometimes you don't want that box sitting around, and I get that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, if I had something like that.
But, that's something else to think about in your home. I've got a nice Christmas tree. It's over in the corner, and it's a clear line of sight from the street. And if I've got a bunch of gifts piled up there, that could be a temptation for somebody to break into the house.
It can be. And a lot of people love leaving their windows open all the time, which is also kind of concerning.
Yeah.
For me personally, I don't like leaving windows open like that, especially when I have, my whole Christmas in my living room or whatever.
But we do hear stories, though, of people that homes are broken into and items are stolen.
Right.
We do hear that.
And that's part of it. Unfortunately, that's just part of our modern society is things like that do happen. So just trying to be prepared and not panicking, but very basic procedures can be followed to at least make things more salvageable, because nobody ever wants to have something stolen, something broken into.
Yeah.
But if somebody is unfortunate enough to have that happen, my main recommendation would be, especially if you were to get home and you were to see your front door is ajar, I would say back out, call 911, let officers clear it, but also don't touch anything, because a lot of people your natural reaction is, hey, I'm going to go in and I'm going to see what they took.
Yeah.
The problem is when you start touching everything in there, you're contaminating a crime scene. You're potentially getting rid of fingerprints and other evidence. So,
well, you sure don't want to go into that house until it's been cleared, because
that would be,
somebody could still be in there.
Yes, that would be the number one thing is your personal safety.
Yes.
And then especially once the house has been cleared, everything's good, then start evaluating property.
Sure. Okay. That's good information. So we talk about our things that we're buying or whatever, transporting. So we want to secure our vehicles, secure the items. We want to take care of ourselves while we're in the shopping environment, knowing the surroundings, watching for our valuables, our purses, and obviously watching out for our children. We want to make sure our homes are secured and somebody's watching over them, and we don't want to broadcast out there, hey, we're away from the house. And
that's right.
Just put up a sign and say, come on in. We don't want to do that. But a lot of times we don't think about, as we are out shopping, sometimes people are looking to steal our personal identification information, and so we got to be careful about that as well.
That's right. So a large chunk of what I would deal with wasn't actually physical property getting stolen. Now, people's cars get broken into all the time, but there is a staggering amount of identity theft, and by identity theft I also mean your credit card information. If somebody uses your credit card information without actually having your physical credit card, it would fall under that statute that Alabama has for identity theft. But also your personal information, sometimes your social security card or social security number, or even just your name and date of birth can be used by criminals to open up an account and take out a line of credit in your name, start making purchases. So that is the kind of thing that we need to be careful with how much of our information we're putting out there. Any time of the year, sure, but especially during Christmas. There's going to be people online who are taking advantage of that, just like we have the people in person who are trying to prey on people.
Yeah, and that brings up the point about scams.
That's right.
There seems to be an uptick in them this time of year, although this is true almost any time of year. We just need to be careful. A lot of folks are very kind-hearted. They'll want to donate to charities.
That's right.
Legitimately. This is understandable, but we got to be careful.
That's right. So donating to charity is great, and I'm not saying, hey, use this as an excuse to not be charitable. Just pay attention, especially if somebody starts asking for things beyond what would seem reasonable, as far as trying to get... not that I'm saying giving money to somebody is bad or anything like that, but sometimes people may try to get even more information out of you. They may try to get personally identifying information out of you through certain things. They may try to get you to sign up for things that maybe aren't beneficial.
Yeah. I'd be very leery of giving things out like my bank account number, obviously, or social security number. No way. Things like this.
And some of this might be in person, but a bigger part of the scams are probably going to be remote. So a lot of them are going to be phone calls, emails, people reaching out to you through Facebook. And I would always suggest that if you're going to do something charitable, have certainty that what you are giving to is actually a legitimate cause. If it's a organization, look them up, see if you can find any information on them. If it's somebody who is presenting themselves as, hey, I'm in a rough spot or whatever, just ask some extra questions. Try to be careful, because there are a lot of people that are going to take advantage of generosity.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are going to try to manipulate you. So you always want to use your best judgment.
Yes, right. And the legitimate companies are not going to be asking for information that would be hands-off information.
Right.
Yeah. You're going to know them. Okay, that's good.
We'll also have a problem with people trying to sell things that they don't legitimately own, fraudulent scams, especially on something like Facebook Marketplace. We have a large problem with stolen property getting sold. So if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. You may want to save yourself a headache and just ask a couple extra questions, do a little bit extra research into some things.
Okay.
We also, like I said, with if somebody were to call you and ask you for too much information, we also need to be careful with where we use our information online. Again, applies to the rest of the year as well, but if you're using it through Amazon or any other larger reputable business, you probably have less to worry about unless you're using an unsecured connection. But if it's a smaller vendor, I'm not saying don't patronize smaller vendors, but just make sure you're comfortable with where you're using your payment details, your credit card information.
Yeah. I have ID theft protection. I'm not going to name the company because I don't want to advertise for them, but you could look into some of those kinds of things, and they're out there available for us.
Yeah. And as far as if your information does get compromised, unfortunately, that is just a very, very common thing. And it's not something that people need to panic about, but you do need to respond to it correctly. So if I found charges on my debit card for $1,000, it may empty out my bank account, but it's not an irreversible problem. Most your reputable banks are insured, and they will get you your money back. They may make you jump through some hoops for it, but it's important to, if you identify a transaction that is not something that you've approved, contact your bank, report it as fraudulent. They may ask for a police report. That's perfectly fine. You just go to your local police department or your sheriff's department where you live. You'll file a report, get a copy of it, and pass it off to your bank. Yeah. Some banks will just refund it without that, and that's always convenient. You may have to cancel your debit card number, or your debit card, get a new debit card number. It's going to be inconvenient, but at the end of the day, you may be without your funds for a little while, but you'll get your money back.
That happened to me last month. I happened to look on my account, and I saw there was a charge for 90 cents. And I don't remember now what the charge was, but I looked at that and I go, wait a minute. I did not purchase something with my debit card for 90 cents.
Right.
And contacted the bank, and they did say, yeah, that looks suspicious. They canceled the debit card.
Right.
They overnighted me a new debit card. So it was a common practice. They were telling me that they were just seeing if the account was a valid account, and so they came up with that charge on it. So we stopped it immediately, but I looked at my bank account. I check it regularly. I knew what was going on with it.
And that is another thing you need to it's a good habit to be in, of checking your bank accounts regularly, making sure you don't have these strange transactions popping up. Because I've had people who have reported like many transactions that have piled up on them because they just weren't looking at their bank account, and suddenly some sort of bad guy has made 20-something transactions. They keep using that information. And like I said, with a good bank, especially if you can legitimately say there's no way I made these transactions, you'll get your money back pretty quickly, typically. But different banks have different policies. If it is something that you're trying to contest, but it does appear you've made it, your bank is going to give you a harder time, and you do need to legitimately be able to explain, no, that wasn't me. And so sometimes you can run into some resistance, but as long as you can clearly explain yourself or explain what's going on, you should be fine.
And this is really true during a heavy travel season. My wife and I travel a lot because we're sojourners. We're out there on mission trips quite often, and so we use our debit cards a lot because of that. So we do pay close attention to it. But again, we're talking about a time of year where people are just targets. A little bit interesting question. I don't suppose there's much significant difference whether you're a younger person or an older person, but we do hear a lot about scams that are aimed at our elderly people.
That's right. We do see it both in my previous job and my current employer. I would say, a elderly skewed number of scams. I don't know necessarily all of the factors that go into it, but there is a large number of just the elderly being taken advantage of. It can be a combination of several different factors. Sometimes people don't have as many family members. As you get older, you may not have as many family members around to help you catch things or to talk about things with. Some people do just want somebody to talk to, and I understand that. We're social creatures, so we want somebody to talk to. But a lot of bad guys will prey on that. They'll try to befriend somebody and ultimately try to steal from them, to take advantage of that. So that's definitely something we got to be aware of. There is a large number of people who don't understand how certain technological things work, and that vulnerability gets exposed.
Okay.
I've seen, especially with my current employment, cryptocurrency is this big new thing, right? But most people who want to buy it or invest in it or whatever don't actually know how it works. And so a bad guy can call and get a hold of somebody and say, hey, here's how this works. Now,
I have no idea how cryptocurrency works. I'll stay away from it.
There's a guy there's probably a series of people out there who want to try to tell you how it works, and I wouldn't believe them because they might be trying to scam you too. That's definitely the kind of thing we need to be careful of, but especially nobody wants to think that they're the kind of person who could fall for something like that.
Yeah, well, unfortunately.
I've had so many victims who are like, hey, I know better.
Right.
I shouldn't have fallen for this. If something is off, something is strange, just reach out to somebody. Run a situation by them. Sometimes it's embarrassing, but sometimes it may be better to be embarrassed early on and keep whatever it is thereafter versus getting embarrassed after when you realize you've fallen for something.
I follow our Prattville Police Department on Facebook, and I appreciate that our local police department is putting information out there when they know of something. Hey, there's a scam in the area, or be careful about such and such. I really do appreciate all of our emergency responders in our area are tremendous folks. So again though, that's an element of situational awareness.
That's right.
Just think about what's going on and just be cautious.
You just got to be paying a little bit of attention. You don't have to be paranoid for your whole holiday season. Just a little bit of extra caution can go a long way.
Okay. Well, there's a lot more of this we could go into, and I encourage people to just think about it a little bit and just use some common sense. Take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, take care of your property. Of course, our personal selves is the most important thing.
That would be my number one suggestion.
That's right.
Make sure you're being safe personally. You don't need to fight somebody for a deal.
No.
It's not worth it.
Not worth it at all. Okay, well, there's a question I like to ask my guests. This is our target audience, primary audience is our Prattville Church family, and you are a wonderful part of that, and I mean that sincerely. I have a warm place in my heart for our 30s and 40s year olds group that just seem like a really dynamic group, and that's the next area of our folks that are going to be active in our congregation and taking lead in our congregation. So I appreciate them very much, and you're a part of that. So I'd like to ask you the question, what makes you feel comfortable about the Prattville Church?
So that's one of those things that's kind of hard to put into words, so I apologize if I ramble a little bit on this.
Okay,
that's fine. I've bounced in between several different congregations as I've gone through my transition into my adult life. I've had congregations that I've gone to while I was in college. Obviously I have my home congregation.
Sure.
Whenever I'm on the road, especially on a Sunday, I enjoy stopping in whatever city I'm in and visiting with that congregation. So I've seen a fair amount of different churches, and the church here has a lot of those qualities that I am looking for. Very rarely have I seen somebody stop by to visit and they don't have half a dozen folks.
Oh yeah, we keep an eye out looking for new friends.
Yeah, a lot of people are really good, especially if somebody just sticks around for a couple of minutes. There's going to be a bunch of people who come over and say hi to them.
Might even get an invitation to come eat dinner.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that you really can't have too much of.
Yeah,
that kind of thing is important, but also just a lot of people are legitimately invested in what's going on in your life. A lot of people want you to succeed, or you want to know how you're doing. I can't go a single Sunday without several different people coming up asking me how I'm doing, shaking my hand, and as long as you're willing to be a part of something like that, it kind of falls into place from there.
Yeah.
These days we have a pretty healthy young adults ministry, I would say. We have a sizable class. It's grown over the last couple of years that I've been here. And I'm pretty happy with how that's going.
Yeah.
I'm definitely seeing a lot of people who are stepping up and moving into to leadership positions that maybe wouldn't have been in stuff like that before. And so that is also very encouraging.
And there's a lot of opportunities for them within our congregation.
That's right.
And I really get excited when I see somebody in not just that age group, but in that age group, where they'll recognize that there's a need and they'll jump in there and start working it.
Yeah. And I've been to congregations that will come to church and that'll be it.
Okay.
They'll meet on a Sunday, Wednesday, whatever your regular times, and most people will scatter.
Okay.
Shortly after things are concluded, and that may be the last they see of each other. And this congregation is healthy with the amount of extracurricular activities, for lack of a better term. We always seem to have something going on. We have a good many service opportunities, and those are things that I also really do appreciate. It seems like it takes a solid 30 minutes for the auditorium to clear after any given service.
And my wife is usually one of the last ones, but that's okay.
Yeah, I've had people start turning out the lights on me plenty, so I get it.
All right. And we offer a pretty good range of Bible classes. I enjoy that.
We have a good many demographics, too.
Yeah.
Everything from our youth up to, I'm not going to say our older classes.
Our senior saints.
Senior saints, that's right. Yeah, we have a good many different Bible studies that fit different things. Was it this year we started doing the growth groups?
Yes.
Our small group equivalent?
Yes. We started growth groups, small groups.
We started that, and that has also been great. And so if anybody was ever interested in those, I can vouch for them. I'm sort of a nomad because
yeah, we've seen you come and go different groups, and that's okay.
I haven't settled on one, and I don't intend on it because for me, it's beneficial to move around in between them. I like checking in on different groups, seeing how people are doing. I get to use it as an opportunity to visit with people I might not see as much on a Sunday.
That's right. Get to know each other.
For me, the rotation is important because I get to check on all these different groups.
Yeah.
And that's been nice too. So we've started doing stuff like that. We're kind of working on some interesting things. So I appreciate those things too.
Well, every time I ask that question or a similar question, it always seems to come back to a couple of different things. Our people, and then the fact that we are exposed to and teaching sound doctrine. We pay very close attention to the Lord's Word.
And that is one of the most, I don't know why I phrased it like that. That is the most important thing.
Sure. Yeah, it is. Okay. Anything else you want to add, my brother?
No, I think we have covered everything I intended on talking about. So.
Well, I have appreciated having you. A lot of good information from your background, professionally as well as experientially, so that's really good. Okay. But thank you, Travis, for being a part of the podcast. I reserve the right to bring you back in a future time.
Perfectly fine. Happy to be here.
Well, friends, I'm your host, Dave Layton, and thank you for joining us in this podcast. I hope you will continue to do so. If you wish to share with me something from your walk with our Master, or you would like to learn more, please email me at walkingwithourmaster@gmail.com. That's walkingwithourmaster@gmail.com. I invite you to follow our podcast and share it with others, as together we walk with our Master. And until next time, remember, we give all glory to God the Father.